Hello and welcome. My name is Alex Cunningham, and I'm here at the Spark Studios, ready to get us started with a wonderful Intersections episode. Today, we're going to be doing Mindfulness at Work, the interview series where Prachi Satanka and Quan Collins interview a wonderful guest. Today, that wonderful guest is Jay Boisseau. So without further ado, Quan, let's get this thing started.
Thanks. Today in the studio, we have Jay Boisseau. Hey, Jay.
Hi, Quan.
Who is a truly divergent technologist and strategist and a dear friend. Jay is the executive director and founder of the Austin Forum on Technology and Society. He's also a founder of the Austin Smart City Alliance, which he founded to help transform Austin into a smart city. Jay works also for Dell Technologies as an HPC and AI strategist. He's also the CEO and founder of Vizia, a consulting firm specializing in high-performance computing, artificial intelligence, smart cities, and technology outreach. That's quite a list of things, Jay, but I think we're going to try to keep up with you here. All right, so Jay, as we've talked about through Intersections, our podcast, it's all about bringing together the ecosystem, the community, our partners, and the magic that happens when all of that comes together to figure out how we solve problems for organizations, for our customers, for the government. And you really sort of were part of what inspired this for me, coming from Austin and working with you on the Austin Forum. So I wanted you to start off by telling our audience about the Austin Forum and what motivated you to start it.
Great question. What motivated me to start it was that I was the director of the Texas Advanced Computing Center at the time, a supercomputing center that was small, but I wanted it to be big, and we did. We made it world class, but it was still supercomputing, so very high end, high performance computing, these HPC systems for really, really big problems, and that is hugely important. And we supported a wide range of research, and TAC still does. As the leading academic supercomputer center in the world, really. But when I was there running it, I realized that only a small percentage of people really understood high performance computing and the nature of the research problems that we were helping to solve. It was a National Science Foundation funded center for supporting academic and open science research. And of course, computing is used at many scales and in many disciplines, and huge, usage in enterprise and industry and in government. So it's not all just about academic research. Computing is all scales for all verticals. And I realized our focus on high performance computing was interesting to some people, but I really also love the breadth of technology and the breadth of technology applications and the synergy between the usage of these technologies. And so as important as it is to have people that specialize and become experts in different areas, it's also important to know the breadth of technologies at some level, so you know when you need to bring another technology into the area you're already an expert in to further advance your mission or your business or your research or something. So we created the Austin Forum 16 years ago, really as a kind of a mini South by Southwest interactive, or a monthly TED Talks or something like that. And at the time, since I was at the University of Texas, we had science speakers as well as technology and society speakers. We still do. We just shortened the name to the Austin Forum on Technology and Society because it's shorter and cleaner for a tech city like Austin with that name. But we did it really for that, to have experts and thought leaders present to audiences that were maybe less expert in that area all of the fundamentals of something cool they were working on and interesting and important to society, in the hope that we would elevate the awareness, a little bit of the understanding, and maybe even the action in those areas. We wanted to make sure everybody who walked in the door learned something, that some of them thought about adopting what they'd learned, and that they were building connections between each other, with not just with the presenter, but between each other. And so the Austin Forum, it got a lot of the inspiration from South by Southwest Interactive, but we just did it once a month. And we did it so that our center, which was really, again, focused on HPC, would have a much broader impact too. Several years ago, after founding Vizia, We started running it. My friends at TAC handed it to us and said, "Why don't you all run it? You all the ones who created it and whatnot." So my friend Allison and I moved it to downtown Austin, which had started to really explode in terms of the number of technology companies, also government workers in downtown, federal, state, and local, as well as close to the university. So we drew more people downtown from even more diverse set of people as well. And it's really taken off. Now, every month, we bring together a large group of people around a different technology topic. And we've even added secondary, smaller events. We've added a podcast. We've kind of added a blog, but we have to reboot that, which we're in the process of doing. So it's really all about, as you know, Quan, teaching people about lots of different technologies with an eye on how they influence society, but also with an underlying motivation to make it approachable so that people, if they need to, can know how to start adopting that technology and who to connect with in order to do so.
Yeah, I miss the events. That was a highlight for me when we were in Austin together. And it's one of the longest running tech forums in Austin too, right?
Yeah, it's not as long running as South by Southwest, but it's probably longer running than most. And it's also a larger activity than most. So of course, we're a huge tech city, so there's a meetup for anything you can think of, and there's probably 3 to 5 for some of the more pervasive technologies and more exciting emerging technologies. But yeah, we're pretty proud of our long history and our scale, because we believe it is important to educate as many people as possible if you really do want to create more connections. So our reach is important to us just as the breadth of technologies we cover is.
I love that. I love the educational factor of it. I think that's where, Prachi and I really see what we would like to come out of what we're doing and some of the work that I'm doing in Huntsville as well. So we talk in some of our episodes, around structures relating to building a culture of collaboration, so inter-organizational collaboration, intra-organizational collaboration. And then we talk a little bit about, the challenges and barriers to innovation, because while I think everyone will agree, right, that we want innovation, we want these cultures, it's still, it's not pervasive, right? It doesn't happen all the time. And so we were curious what your perspective was on the challenges and barriers to innovation. And have you experienced that in the context of the Austin Forum?
Great question, and pretty open-ended, but I'll try to be more succinct than I was on the first one. Everybody says the word collaboration and everybody says the word innovation, but we often put structures in place that tend to inhibit it, which means that if you don't also do things to incentivize it and reward it, the structures you put in place will overwhelm any, talk about it. One of the common things is, the organizational chart, usually a tree structure in most organizations. And people talk about silos between teams sometimes, and the silos aren't usually intentional, but they're most commonly an aspect of each group has its own deliverables, and each director and then upward to each VP and senior VP and president of a business unit has their own things that they're measured on. And if you're not careful to ensure that the only thing that really matters is the overall success of the organization, then you're going to have some silos, subconscious or otherwise, between branches of the tree, especially the more the reward system is based farther down those branches. So that's just a natural human and organizational psychology thing. So you have to overcome that by really having company rewards as much and even more, I think, than rewards that are team-based or, I'm going to say branch-based in that order.
I love that.
You certainly have to talk about collaboration and mission. I wasn't saying that talking about it is a bad thing. I'm just saying that you can't just talk about it. Right. You have to incentivize the active collaboration and the active innovation across those branches, not just in those branches, if you really want it to be a whole organization scale level of collaboration and innovation. So that's probably the number one thing. There's another thing I see a lot is in people I talk to in the various companies that come to the Austin Forum or that I intersect with through any of my other roles is you have to have some time for learning. If you don't have time for learning, and if you're only executing the procedures of your day job, well, we're all in technology, and knowledge is growing exponentially. Technology capabilities are often growing exponentially, maybe not exponentially every day, but integrated over time exponentially in various jumps and such. And so if you aren't giving people a chance to learn and ask questions and be curious, it's really easy to, I don't want to say grind, but accidentally train people into executing today's tasks instead of also thinking about tomorrow and what could be. And so I think that has to be a whole organization level thing, but it needs to be reflected by all of the managers down all of the tree branches through the organization. They, if you have a department in which no one has any time other than to execute the basic business processes, it's going to be hard for them to ask what if and think in terms of innovation and whatnot. I'll give just one third thing. And, we're all aware of examples of people who have achieved tremendous success in multiple jobs and roles, leading multiple companies and whatnot. I think there's, not that everybody should do that, but I think everybody probably should make sure that they're learning different things. You might be deep in one thing, but things like the Austin Forum and many other things help you be broad enough to know how that relates to everything else. And when maybe you need to change what you're being an expert in. More likely, where you might need to either gain expertise in something else or collaborate with an expert in something else. And it's difficult to know if you're not also focused on breadth. And this relates to point number 2. It even relates to point number 1 about cross-organizational collaboration. You should want to excel and be a deep thinker and a thought leader in something, one or a few things, but you should really, when so many technologies are synergistic and so many societal factors and political factors and geographic factors and economic factors weigh into ultimate success, you really should make sure you always have a broad base of awareness of what's going on in technology and in the world that technology has to influence and that it's influenced by. And so, read, attend things like the Austin Forum, watch YouTube videos by experts, not, cat videos, but, real stuff. There's so many ways to learn now. You have to be careful to use your time wisely to learn from people who really have something to share and are experts at sharing it.
Wow, Jay, I have to say that was a lot of great advice, really packed into those last few minutes. And a lot of those themes certainly resonate with me. I mean, starting with even the incentivization. And then when you started talking about, switching between, I guess, what we call the performance zone versus the learning zone, and then being exploratory, right? And making use of exponential technologies. And I started imagining sort of, the futurist in me is wanting to take the conversation, thinking of those exponential technologies. In episode 4 of our podcast, for example, we talk about top 5 intersections or trends of the year. And we did that for 2022. And I have to say that was a little bit, inspired by some of the exercise that you do through Austin Forum, where every January, I believe you guys look at the top trends, which I think is a great way to look at the future, imagine the future by combining multiple disciplines, multiple, types of thinkers, and then looking at the impact. So can you tell us a little bit more about the motivation for these sessions and what you uncovered through them, and maybe even, a favorite trend or 2 trends that you are seeing that are very exciting for you?
Wow, let's see. I'm already 0 for 2 on being short answers for these. And this is the most open-ended of all. So let me try. So every January we do a tech trends for 2022. And then in parentheses, we put and beyond, because me and the other speakers always want to talk about some things for which the impact is beyond 2022. For example, this year, quantum computing, tremendous buzz right now. Quantum physics is real. Quantum computing will be practical someday, but everybody's estimate on that day is measured in years, not months. And the variance is high among all experts and thought leaders as to where it really hits that transition point. I'm an optimist, by the way, for that one, because so many billions from so many countries and so many companies are being invested, and because the price of winning, the value of winning in that space is so high,
Massive. Yeah.
and the threat of losing in that space has national security and financial implications that are extraordinary. Generally, humans outperform on innovation when national security and financial opportunity at that scale line up. So I'm optimistic on that. But of the trends that, of course, that we talked about in that episode, I'll just talk about two that I'm really interested in right now. One is AI. And of course, that's been buzzy for several years now, because several years ago, we realized the value of GPUs as accelerators in deep neural network computations on object classification. And we've gone way beyond just that object classification with what we can do with deep neural networks and deep learning overall, and reinforcement learning and generative adversarial networks and whatnot. And AI is just the field, it's when your computation amount is always increasing and the data available to it is always increasing, and the people developing the algorithms for what you can do with that much data and that much computing are always improving their knowledge and building better and better methods. That is just an area of exponential impact. And I think we haven't even hit the uptick in the so-called hockey stick uptick in that curve yet, despite all the buzz. I think we're going to see amazing things in that. It's a trend that people are talking about, and I hope that it translates into a trend that we see real solutions for, are misinformation and disinformation. With more and more knowledge in the world, and our time passes linearly for us. So really every day, less and less of the total body of human knowledge. And that's a frustrating thing when you think about it. You may know more than you know yesterday, but you know less as a percentage of all human knowledge tomorrow than yesterday, which means we are critically dependent on collaboration. We're critically dependent on education to help us step up our game in these areas so that we don't all have to reinvent everything. We don't have to reinvent fire or the wheel. We need great education to keep our baseline and keep our expertise up. But we're still seeing that tools like, the web and smartphones and social media are able to put misinformation out there. People who aren't very good at sharing quality information. It's often accidental, but we aren't training people. There need to be more high school and college classes and understanding quality of information and how to validate information rather than just sharing in a tweet length bit.
Amen to that.
Missing context. So in fact, our Austin Forum event in October is going to be on misinformation and even more nefariously disinformation, where people are intentionally obscuring things and learning ways to make things sound true that are misleading at best and nefarious at worst. So those are two trends. And, maybe they relate. Maybe AI can help us auto-validate more things. It's not all the way there yet. I had a friend who posted something funny on Twitter about, just got my booster shot and my 5G reception increased. And he got a whole bunch of laughs until the AI algorithm banned him for 24 hours. So what was clearly a funny joke. AI is not good at humor.
But, I have to say, Jay, I love that. It's a subtle point that you made, but it was a bit of an aha moment for me, where you said that, why is the need for collaboration, right? And given the complexities of this sort of, fast evolving world and the amount of content, whether that's information, misinformation, that's a pretty great argument as to why we need to continue to collaborate. So thank you for that.
Yeah. And I love the point about just the information, disinformation, and needing to educate people more on how to identify high quality and relevant data, accurate and relevant data. Prachi and I worked together in analytics when she was with SAIC, and I teach analytics at the doctoral level. And I mean, it's scary. It is frightening that we are still making really bad decisions because we are not practitioners in identifying what is the best data to make that decision. So I really love that point. So you work at Dell, among many things that you do, leading AI and HPC technology strategy. We wanted to know more, if you can share whatever you're able to share, about some specific missions or problems that you're working on that you're able to share with the audience.
Sure. Well, slight correction. I wouldn't say I lead HPC and AI strategy. I contribute to it. There's a lot of, Michael Dell ultimately leads all strategy at Dell. And then he's got great chief operating officers. We have great presidents of our business units and great vice presidents and directors. But yeah, that is certainly one of my roles there as a subject matter expert in HPC, to be an HPC strategist, and the AI strategy is something I've moved into over the last couple of years. And it's been fun because I'm a technology strategist primarily, but I have to factor in what customers need, what the business markets, and projections are for these kinds of solutions. Dell actually has a really interesting place in AI. I don't think and again, I'm speaking for me and my opinion, not for my employer, although I don't think they'll mind this statement, because I don't think we get the full credit we deserve in AI. So much of the world's data lives on Dell storage gear, especially after the EMC acquisition. We're the leading on-prem storage provider in the world. And with that, people often have Dell servers on which they're performing data analytics, and now increasingly machine learning and deep learning. And so these are big and growing markets for us. We aren't noted for software in AI yet, but we certainly provide a lot of the hardware, which also it's what runs the software. And we have great expertise and partnerships with software companies throughout the analytics and AI space to make sure that we can give great advice to customers on how to configure all of this and put it together. But I will say again, we're in the early days of AI. So we are still seeing companies struggle with having big successes in AI. We definitely have some great customer success stories that Dell and many other companies do too as well. We see, a shortage of data science expertise in the world overall, and that makes our role really important in guiding what to design and configure and buy and use. But we still need to do a better job as a society of training data scientists and training people to understand probability and statistics, and that the world isn't always linear and it's not always definite. People struggle with probability and statistics all the time. And as you know, these AI methods give you a confidence vector on the end. They don't say that image is definitely a cat. They say that image is 99% a cat. And then we just say, oh, we assign a threshold. So we say it said cat, or in a health scan, it said tumor. But it's really a probability. And so we need to train a lot of people. And that's one of the things that I'm seeing. But I'm seeing companies really embrace this. We see CIOs and the advent of chief analytics officers and chief data officers who are really getting the importance of this. My employer, Dell, wants to be the essential data company of the data era. And many other companies aspire to do that as well, or aspire to use their data to be the leader in whatever their field is. And so that's the fundamental trend I'm seeing in this. And on the HPC side, there's a general recognition that since data sizes are growing faster than Moore's law, and since the analytics techniques are getting increasingly computational, more and more AI will be conducted on HPC systems. HPC used to be almost exclusively for simulation, but now we also seeing it being used for data analytics and AI. So to me, it's a very exciting time to be an HPC, because instead of just that small range of applications that not everybody, when you went to a party, wanted to hear you talk about designing, a new wing for an airplane that was slightly less, less friction and more stable and whatnot. Now there are a whole batch of other stories that I can talk to them about, and what customers are doing to design new drugs or understand climate effects, or things like that. It's all very exciting. So HPC is used by more and more companies than ever, and a lot of that's driven by data analytics and AI needs.
I love that.
Jay, I have to say, you kind of started, getting me all excited. I mean, we are going to have some offline conversation for sure. Like right now, I am completely immersed in the climate tech ecosystem. And so, you sort of started alluding to that with Earth observation data, the kind of possibilities there through HPC. So pulling that thread further a little bit, what is next in HPC? And I mean, you've, worked across different practice areas, whether that was smart cities, which again has some, tangential threads around the bigger climate tech picture. Obviously, your background in astronomy, we didn't talk about that a lot, but through your doctorate, you have that background. And again, massive data sets, massive problems there. So what applications of HPC, and if you want to, throw in AI there, would be impactful to solve some of these pressing problems of this decade? And I know it's a very open-ended question, but maybe you have a couple that are your favorites again.
Well, at heart, I'll always be an astrophysicist and astronomer, even though it's not my practicing day job. And the biggest thing that we know of in the universe is the universe. Mm-hmm. And so astrophysics will, always need HPC, and really any field in which you're trying to understand the interaction of matter and energy, understanding the way that the forces of nature, of electromagnetism and gravity, and the strong and weak nuclear forces dictate interactions with matter and energy, that we're always going to want to be able to simulate that, because the better we simulate that, the more we can prove our understanding of the physics is great. So nerd hat on, physics, love physics, applying it to astronomy or any other discipline. We will, chemical physics, biological physics, et cetera. We subdivide all of these fields, but ultimately we want to understand the forces of nature and the particles of nature and how these things interact, how matter and energy interact. There's many problems for which we are a long way from understanding the forces of nature that do it. And some of them aren't forces of nature kinds of questions, even, at least until you have a better model of the brain, right? Like, why are 13-year-old girls going to buy a red shoe next year instead of a blue shoe? And I have no idea if that's true, but what makes fashion trends? Well, there's no Schrodinger's equation for that. There's no Maxwell's equations for that. I suppose if we ever understood neuroscience perfectly, we could do statistical analyses across populations and whatnot and try to make some predictions, but we can't, right? We use sociology and statistics and things like that to try to understand trends. And now we increasingly use AI to understand, what are people seeing? What are people reading? Can we classify the images, the text, et cetera, and how it's influencing people? So we're starting to see that data analytics and AI can give us even some predictive capabilities over things that we maybe didn't expect to be able to predict and could never through normal simulation. And that's a really cool thing. And so it relates to cities in the sense that cities are so complex, we're not going to have a set of Navier-Stokes equations that fully explain all the aspects of cities and people in them and the infrastructure and whatnot. But we're increasingly being able to model and simulate not just individual processes, but put it together in larger scale simulations and then complement with analytics and AI. And so I really love the cities example, because if you think of all the people in cities and the things they do and the different locations, not just in X and Y, but also Z dimensions and skyscrapers and whatnot. You think about all the modes of transport and the wind and temperature fluctuations around and whatnot. You think of energy usage and infrastructure design and everything. Cities are amazingly complex, and yet more than half the people in the world live in cities, and projected to be more than two thirds by 2050. So we really have to get cities right. And there's real good reasons people live in cities, from being able to share expertise and become experts in something, but leverage a different expert in something else. You don't have to make your own clothes anymore. You can go to the clothing store down the street and whatnot. And that's just, many, many examples. But if we can simulate cities better and understand them better through not just simulation, but analytics and AI, that's a powerful thing. And HPC is going to play a huge role in that in the future, I think. In fact, there's a more general term that I'll try to close this comment with, and that's digital twins. If we can make digital twins of physical objects that behave like the physical versions, then we can do all kinds of experiments on the digital versions quickly, cheaply, and safely, and understand how the physical entities may react and evolve, and what the risks and threats and fragility and sustainability of those are. So we are already doing digital twins that are pretty good about things like cars, for example. But doing digital twins of the human body to really get as much of that science right at the large scale and the small molecular scales, that's challenging, but people are working on it. Getting digital twins of cities is going to be incredibly important. We have very rough digital twins, but they're not really twins. They're so rough. But in time, we will have digital twins of human bodies, of cities, of all of the important things that we're trying to improve for individual and collective prosperity and health and safety and benefit. And so I'm really excited about the use of HPC, and that includes simulation, analytics, and AI on these HPC systems for digital twins of humans and for digital twins of all of the infrastructure humans use and for digital twins of the entire environments humans live in.
Well, Jay, I think we could, talk for another hour together, but unfortunately our time is up. This was fascinating. And I think, Prachi, maybe we need to have a part 2 with Jay, because I have more questions now. Anyways.
And I've proven I can't answer a question short.
Well,
so
you know what? But it was awesome. So thank you so much for your time today. It was great talking to you, great seeing you. And please do come to visit in Huntsville.
I've never been to Huntsville. I'm dying to see it. And I love everything that you brag on about it. And I can't wait to get there.
And Jay, we'd be happy to have you. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. It was awesome to hear everything you had to say, Jay. Before we end, I need to quickly say thanks to the Samaya Studios for helping us out here. Check them out on LinkedIn. They're awesome. Also, check us out on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, anywhere you feel like looking. We're there. We're UAH I2C, and we're happy to have you. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you in the next one. Onward and upward.